before when I mentioned her award-winning cookbook. I can't cook, but I know someone who can. The benefits go to the Charlotte chapter of the Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation. I'm sure that makes a difference in your purchase because you know that it's going to a good cause. So she will be available for a few minutes after she speaks. So if you haven't had a chance to get a signed copy, please visit her on before she heads out of here. And of course, we all know the name and the voice of Stacy. She was so cute when she came in. She goes, "I'm Stacy Sims," and I'm like, "Really?" You know, like. But I've seen her speak, and I guess she is a radio personality, so everyone doesn't know her face. Are you not on a billboard or anything?
Not right now.
Not yet.
I have.
She has. So see, and I'm a Charlotte native, so I'm sure at some point in time I've seen your billboard. But she is also one of Mecklenburg Times' most influential women, and by now you might be thinking, wow, it must be pretty easy to get that because everybody in the room has it, but I don't know. It's a pretty amazing thing, so I'm glad to have several of us here today. And I will let Stacy get up and tell you her story because it did start with her idea of wanting to do something different. And I don't know why a cookbook came to mind, but we're going to find out. And she's a fabulous speaker. I've heard her before, so you're in for a treat.
Well, thank you very much. I'm really thrilled to be here today. And yeah, I have been on a billboard, which is a very strange experience, especially when you have a toddler in the back seat who calls it the clipboard. Mom, you're the clipboard. I used to say it's funny. But it is, I always love coming to events like this because I learn so much as well. I'm a working mom. My children are 10 and 7 now, which is hard to believe for me. I do work at News Talk 1110 WBT. I've been the host and co-host of Charlotte's Morning News for, it'll be 10 years come September. Oh gosh, thank you. Yeah, I worked before that at WBTV as a reporter, so I've been going to 1 Julian Price Place in East Charlotte for work for 13 years. Before that, I never held a job for more than 2 or 3 years. In TV, you kind of bounce around in radio. So it's pretty incredible to think that when we moved to Charlotte, my parents refused to think about even looking for a home here because they said, "Oh, you never stay anywhere. Who are you kidding?" And here we are 13 years later. Well, what I wanted to talk about today, my story is just a little bit different. I wanted to talk about how I set a goal for myself and accomplished it. I've always been a broadcaster. It's what I always wanted to do. It's the only kind of full-time job I've ever really had ever since college. I was in radio and in television, now radio again. But a few years ago, I started a project that was different from anything I had ever done before. I knew, the only thing I knew was that while I didn't know exactly what I was doing, that I was going to get this done. So here's what happened. My husband's name is Slade. My children are Leah, who's now 10, and Benny, who is 7. And Benny has type 1 diabetes. He was diagnosed at the age of 23 months. I do speak quite a bit about diabetes. I'm happy to do that if anybody has a group or needs an explanation. But I don't want to focus too much on the diabetes today, other than to say it turned our lives completely upside down. He was 23 months old. He'd been sick for about a month. We were very, very nervous. When we got the diagnosis, it took us about a week, and because of some other circumstances, one of which was that it was very early on, so some tests came back negative. And when you have all the classic symptoms of type 1 diabetes, and the test initially, the fasting blood glucose test is normal, your mind just starts racing. So we didn't know what it was, and our imaginations kind of took us away. I made the mistake of going on the internet. So when we got the diagnosis of diabetes, it was almost a relief, not really, but almost, because at least we knew what we were dealing with. But I wanted to do something. Once we got a handle on the food and the insulin and the shots and the routine and the craziness, and I wanted to do something to make a difference. Yeah, there are some terrific events already. WBT has already been a sponsor of the big golf tournament that JDRF does here in Charlotte. So amazingly, I knew all these great families. And when Benny was diagnosed, I was able to call some of them up and say, "How do you do this? How do you deal with it?" They were wonderful support. wonderful walks that raise more than $1 million in the Charlotte area. There were a lot of great events for JDRF. So I didn't know what to do. I was searching around for an idea, and it was funny, just like you said, Sherry, when you're doing something else, when your mind is occupied with something else, maybe you're more relaxed, I don't know. I'm getting my nails done at Millennium Salon, which is right here in Dilworth. I'm sure some of you know it. And they have the Food Network on. And I'm watching this chef. It was a show they used to have called How to Boil Water. I don't know if they have it on anymore. He said, this is how you chop an onion. No one ever tells you how, so everybody does it wrong, and here's how you do it. And I thought, you know, that's me. I hate cooking. I don't cook. I'm married. My husband owns a restaurant. So I married a restaurateur. He's not a classically trained chef, but he is fantastic in the kitchen. His whole family cooks. He said, you know, if I had only been taught at some point how to do the basics, I'm sure that everything else would have fallen into place. And then it just hit me all at once. At WBT, we talk to restaurant owners and chefs all the time, especially at this point. A couple of years ago, the Charlotte food scene was really evolving. It was very exciting. Johnson & Wales only been open for a short time. Lots of people were coming through the studio. I thought, well, why not make a cookbook kind of as a teaching tool, and we could use these great chefs, and I could give all the money to JDRF. So I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this is great. Oprah's going to call me. This is fantastic. In 5 minutes, I had the name of the book. I had the whole concept. I knew everything that was going to happen. There was going to be a movie deal. And then the manicurist, you know those big ketchup bottles of moisturizer that they use? Opened up all over me. Oh, I'm in dreamland. I'm a gazillionaire. You know, I'm giving money to the charity, and everything's wonderful. So I laughed, and I said, okay, back to reality. And I had a staff meeting at my office. So I had to get the moisturizer off my black pants and go back to work. But that inauspicious beginning is kind of how much of this went for me. You know, that old saying, keep your head, eyes in the sky, your feet on the ground, you know, that's how it went. And I love that. So I've got this book concept, I have no idea what to do with it. I only knew that I wanted to get it done quickly. This was August of 2007. I wanted to get it done and out and selling by September of 2008, maybe October. Because every 4 years, News Talk Radio gets the biggest listenership cycle. Every 4 years we have a presidential election. And so that's when our big listenership, barring a disaster or an ice storm, comes through. So without realizing it, I've just accomplished 2 of the items in a checklist I believe is absolutely crucial to get anything done. 1, set a concrete goal, and 2, set a deadline. So what next?